Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 246-248. Bulad and Kazi. Chapter 246. Chapter 248. Bulad and Kazi. Valira bows her head respectfully. My uncle will arrive in 2 days, Your Majesty. He traveled separately. The king leans back slightly at that interest flashing in his eyes. Hadrick? Yes, sire. A deep chuckle rumbles from Rostel. Then I'll be sure to clear my morning. I've long wanted to meet the man who shattered a Tier 6 troll's skull with one strike. Your clan's fame is already considerable, but Hadrick? He's a tale all his own. King Rostel rises slowly from his throne. The hall quiets. Even the fluttering banners seem to pause as the king of Imlan descends the marble steps of the dais. His crimson robes trailing behind him, boots striking firm against the polished stone. Come, he says, his voice steady but solemn. Let us go and receive the spears. No grand gesture. No trumpets. Just that simple sentence. And yet the weight of it settles in the air like stone. Valira straightens instinctively. So do Gresrin and Salvan. The king gestures to a pair of attendants who immediately flank him, one handing him a dark fur-lined cloak bearing the Empire's symbol on the back, the coiled dragon and three-point crown. A formal cloak of audience, reserved only for meetings with figures of equal or higher standing. As he fastens it at the collar, the king glances to Valira. You've read of the spears, he says, walking now, motioning for them to follow. But books don't capture the presence they carry. When you stand before them, you'll understand why even kings bow. They pass through a side corridor, lined with old weapons sealed in display glass, the remnants of ancient campaigns. I've only met 3 in my life, Rostel continues, voice lower. Each one different, but all of them beyond. Outside, the sky glows orange with the last light of sunset. Bells echo faintly across the capital. Soldiers are already lining up on both sides of the palace steps, their armor-polished shields raised in salute. The great square before the palace gates is filled with onlookers, nobles, commanders, citizens standing shoulder to shoulder. And in the distance, a slow, steady rhythm of footsteps. Marching. Thousands. The lead unit appears first. Black-cloaked, silver-armored, their formation so perfect it's unnerving. Standard-bearers hold up the sigils of the 19th and 18th spears. And between them 2 figures walk side by side. One is a woman. Tall and sharp-eyed, her silver-blonde hair braided into a tight crown. Her armor is matte black with red-lined edges, and she wears no helmet. A thin sword hangs at her waist, humming faintly with contained energy. The other is a man, broader in frame, older perhaps, but just as imposing. His spear is longer than he is tall, capped with a glowing obsidian tip. His steps carry weight, but not from tiredness, from authority. Rostel stops at the edge of the palace steps. Valira draws a sharp breath. She can feel it, like standing before a gathering storm. The pressure, the density of their presence. Her instincts scream at her to kneel, to show reverence, to not even speak unless spoken to. And she's a tier 5. The spears stop at the foot of the stairs. Every soldier, every noble, every soul present bows. So does Rostel. He lowers his head. Hands clasped, left knee to the polished stone. The ruler of Imlan kneels without hesitation. By the Empire's breath, he says formally, I welcome the 19th and 18th spears to the kingdom of Imlan. May our lives serve your command. King Rostel, you honor the Empire. The man follows, deeper voice like rolling stone. And we honor Imlan's resilience. Rise. Rostel stands slowly. So do the rest. Valira keeps her posture rigid. The spears ascend the steps, and the woman turns her gaze toward Valira. You are from Ashedge, she says. Not a question. A recognition. Valira bows again. Valira, yes, my lady. A pause. I read your record. Very clean. Very fast. Her tone softens only slightly. We'll see if you live up to it. Bulad's voice cuts through the moment. Low, graveltoned. Let's go inside and start the meeting. Kazi gives a single nod. Her eyes sweep briefly across the square, then to the palace doors, calculating, as if memorizing the layout before ever stepping foot within. King Rostel gestures toward the entrance, stepping aside in a rare gesture of deference. Of course. The war table is prepared. You honor us by stepping into this hall. Inside the war room, the atmosphere is thick with urgency. The chamber itself is circular and stone-walled, with a massive table at its center carved from obsidian and embedded with veins of glowing blue mana crystal. Maps, sealed missives, and troop markers litter its surface. The 3 representatives, each alone, each marked by their own colors and crests, are already there. They rise as one the moment the spears enter. The Abaoth Kingdom's representative, a wiry man in deep green robes adorned with gold thread trim, bows low. His voice is formal but fast, like a man used to walking behind kings. Welcome, spears. On behalf of my king, I greet you with open arms. May our alliances bleed as one. The Watervale clan's envoy is a woman older with blue-colored eyes and braided hair streaked silver. She gives a curt nod, warrior-like and direct. I am Tressa of Watervale. You honor us with your presence. The moment you command, my riders move. The Wind Death clansman looks younger, mid-30s maybe, with long black hair tied back and 2 small axes strapped across his back. His cloak is stitched from the feathers of Windrake falcons. He grins slightly as he bows. Zorvan Winddeath, we've been sharpening steel since we got the summons. Just tell us where to aim it. Bulad gives a faint nod to all 3. His tone is simple, weighty. We'll get to that soon. KZ offers a short assessing glance to each of them before speaking. Where's the 4th? Valira steps forward before anyone else can. I'm standing in for the Ashedge clan, Lady KZ. My uncle arrives tomorrow. Zorvan tilts his head slightly. Your Velkane's blood? Valira gives a sharp nod. Valira Ashedge. Tressa studies her for a moment, then offers a faint smile. Congratulations on making your clan rank 5. That's no small feat. Valira inclines her head steady. Thank you, Lady Tressa. It was earned. Bulad doesn't dwell on ceremony. He steps forward, casting his eyes down on the war map. Now, let's get to the matter. Where are the monsters? How many cities and towns have they taken? Marshal Vaff steps up from King Rostal's side. He salutes briefly before speaking. Marshal Vaff, at your service. His voice is gravel-thick and precise. Initial contact was made 2 weeks ago along the borderlands near Falren. Since then we've lost 9 cities, 14 major towns, and another 23 smaller settlements, either razed or abandoned. He points to each place on the map with a gloved hand, tapping red mark tokens now crowded across the western quadrant. They split their forces, 3 vanguard arms. One heading south through the riverlands, another directly east toward our grain belts, and the third went straight for the high roads likely to cut off trade and reinforcement lines. Total estimate? Bulad asks. Over 300,000 casualties. The silence after hangs like ash. KZ's eyes narrow as she leans in, slightly fingertips resting on the edge of the map. So almost half the territory of your kingdom is under monster control. Marshal Vaff exhales through his nose. Yes, Lady KZ. They didn't stop. They didn't regroup. They moved as if they already knew the land. Bulad lets out a low whistle, gaze still fixed on the map. It's amazing, he says, voice rough with thought. The monsters on the other continent are this organized. Coordinated strikes, tactical formations, layered movements. That's not instinct. That's command structure. Zorvan grunts in agreement. They're not beasts. Never were. People forget that. If we hadn't broken the monster tribes here and made them submit, Bulad continues, this continent would have been divided in half by now. Maybe worse. A grim murmur passes around the table. Even the regional envoys, proud and battle-hardened, can't argue with that. KZ runs her finger across the map, slowly stopping just before the eastern ridge line. This is where we draw the line then. We give up no more ground. Not a town. Not a single path. Bulad nods. First step. We need to fortify the Imlin ridgeline. I want at least 5 Tier 4s and 2 Tier 5 stationed at each choke point. Chapter 247-249. Taking Back the Zugan Town, Part 1. Chapter 247. Chapter 249. Taking Back the Zugan Town, Part 1. After some time, Valira exits the war room with an exhausted face. The grand halls feel colder, now quieter, as if the walls themselves are still absorbing the weight of the meeting. She walks with a heavy gait, her boots echoing faintly against the polished stone. The palace corridors stretch before her, twisting, silent, lit by flickering crystal sconces. When she reaches her quarters, she doesn't knock. She just pushes the door open. Inside, Gressrin and Salvin are already waiting. Salvin is leaning against the window ledge, arms crossed, looking out over the city rooftops. Gressrin is seated on one of the low couches, boots off his feet, propped on a small table, a half-eaten peach in his hand. Valira stops in the doorway and lets her head fall back with a tired groan. You two better not be eating my rations. Salvin glances over his shoulder. Only the fruit. Gressrin was going for your wine, but I stopped him. Gressrin lifts the peach with a shrug. You didn't stop me. I just didn't find it. Valira steps in and drops her cloak over a chair. That's because I hid it under the floorboards, genius. Gressrin blinks. Oh. Salvin cracks a grin. Noted for next time. Valira sinks into the armchair, arms, heavy eyes half-lidded. We're moving, she says plainly. Gressrin looks up from his peach. Where? Zugan Town. Salvin turns from the window. Already? But Sir Hadric's supposed to arrive in the next 2 days. I know. Valira rubs her eyes. But orders are orders. We're to strike before then. Gressrin whistles low. Jumping the gun, aren't they? Not really, Valira replies, straightening. Intel says the strongest monster left guarding Zugin is a middle-level tier 5. Gressrin tosses the peach pit aside and stretches his arms behind his head with a sigh. Well then, he says, voice casual but a little tighter than usual. I guess I need to get some good sleep tonight. Salvin nods slowly, his expression unreadable. Yeah. Let's do that. It'll be a long and hard battle tomorrow. Valira looks at them both, faint gratitude in her tired eyes. Thanks. Gressrin stands, gives her a light slap on the shoulder as he passes. We'll be ready, Commander. Valira lifts a hand in acknowledgement, and with that the two men leave her room, their footsteps fading down the corridor. The next morning. The sun hasn't yet risen when the drums begin to beat. The next morning. The sun hasn't yet risen when the drums begin to beat. The courtyard is alive with movement. Soldiers in full armor line the ranks, their black and silver ash-edge banners fluttering in the wind. 20,000 troops stand in formation across the stone courtyard and spill into the adjacent grounds, orderly and silent, their faces set like steel. The clank of gear, the low murmur of last words, the distant bark of an officer checking final counts. All of it hums like a storm just about to break. Valira stands at the front, mounted on a black war elk, her armor gleaming faintly under the blue morning haze. Her hair is tied back into a braid and her helm rests at her side. Gressrin and Salvin ride to her left and right, both in full battle regalia. Gressrin gives her a sidelong look. Are you ready? Valira raises her voice. Calm, firm, cutting through the air like a blade. Warriors of Ash Edge, she calls. The ranks fall utterly still. Our time has come. Our march is not for conquest. It's not for glory. It's to take back what was stolen. The monsters at Zugin hold what once belonged to our people. Today we remind them who the land truly answers to. A cheer erupts, low at first, then rising like a tide crashing against stone. Valira puts her helm on and lifts her arm. March! The horns sound. The banners lift. And 20,000 Ash-Edge soldiers begin their march east. Hours later, perimeter outside Zugin town. The sun is already descending, casting long shadows over the broken ridgelands as the Ash-Edge army settles into a cautious halt just beyond Zugin's outer ring. The once prosperous town lies in the shallow basin ahead, half submerged in mist, with rooftops crooked and walls broken. The air smells of damp stone and blood that's long dried. Valira stands, arms folded, eyes fixed on the horizon. Her elk grazes nearby, untethered but ever watchful. She doesn't speak. She's waiting. The wind shifts. A rustle, soft but deliberate, reaches her ears from the left tree-line. Moments later, Salvin emerges from the underbrush, cloak pulled tight, boots near silent on the dirt. Valira turns to him as he approaches, eyes narrowing. Report. Salvin stops a few paces away and gives a small nod. His voice is low-clipped but urgent. They're dug in. Real structured. Patrols every 15 minutes. Inner rings fortified. Looks like they reinforced the old town walls with steel plates. Valira's brow tightens. They expecting us? Salvin nods once. Absolutely. They're not scrambling. They're waiting. Like they know we're here. She exhales through her nose, sharp. Numbers? At least 2,000 in the outer perimeter. Maybe more behind the walls. They're not swarming like wild beasts either. They're patrolling in units. Organized, disciplined. He hesitates a beat. And they're armored. Heavy. Uniform. Valira looks up sharply. Matching plate. Dark gray, angular. Not patchwork. Full sets. Helmets, greaves, gauntlets. Enchanted by the look of it. I'd say they're more armored than our vanguard. Gressrin strides over just in time to hear that last part. More armored than us? He scoffs. That's not possible. A beat of silence passes between them. Valira's voice is low, quiet, but iron beneath it. So it's true then. Salvin nods. They're not chaotic. They're not wild. They're like us. Gressrin folds his arms. So what's the play, Commander? Storm the gates and see who breaks first? Valira shakes her head immediately. No, that's suicide. If they're that coordinated, a direct charge will only lead to heavy casualties. She points toward the western slope. We set up a false siege line there. Get them watching the wrong side of the hill. Meanwhile, Salvin and the scout will open that gate. The moon hangs low and orange in the sky, veiled behind thin clouds that drift like smoke. The Ash-Edge soldiers, 10,000 strong, move with ghost-like silence into position along the broken southern ridgeline. Gressrin crouches behind a jagged outcrop of stone, his shield strapped to his back, sword resting across his knees. His eyes sweep the distant town walls with a wary calm. Above them, Valira stands on a narrow bluff, wind tugging at the ends of her cloak. Her black war elk is tied off behind her, snorting quietly in the dark. She's still watching the enemy formation under the cover of moonlight. Rows of dark metal gleaming figures moving in perfect rhythm. Patrols march like clockwork. Not a trace of chaos. No gaps. Salvan returns from the far end of the ravine, crouching low beside Gresrin. We're ready, he says. Scouts in place. Signal teams are watching from the ridge. Just say the word. A gust of wind brushes past her. She reaches behind her back and draws her bow. A sleek silver-black weapon that hums faintly with stored mana. It gleams under the moonlight, lines of wind-etched runes pulsing along its limbs. No quiver hangs at her side. She doesn't need one. Valira plants her boots, slowly raising the bow. Salvan, she says, her voice steady, give the scouts the countdown. Gresrin, once the volley hits you, charge with your line. Shield wall first. Force them inward. Gresrin stands up fully and slams his shield against the rock, once a low thunk in the dark. Got it. We'll crack the flank before they even know we're inside the town. Valira doesn't reply. Her fingers draw back the empty bowstring and mana rushes into the space, shaping itself into a translucent green arrow made of pure wind essence. It sharpens in the air, its tip narrow like a lance glowing faintly. She whispers the skill's name almost reverently. Tier 5, Windfall Volley. The bow pulses. The mana arrow glows brighter than fragments, splitting midair with a shrill whistle. 1 becomes 3. 3 become 30. 30 fracture into hundreds. Each arrow spins, slicing the wind with impossible speed, trailing thin spirals of air in their wake as they rise then fall. Like a reverse storm drawn into her command. A heartbeat of silence. Then, Kramam. Chapter 248-250. Taking Back the Zugin Town, Part 2. Chapter 248. Chapter 250. Taking Back the Zugin Town, Part 2. The sky opens. Hundreds of wind-forged arrows rain down like a divine tempest, screaming through the air with piercing shrieks. They slam into the outer ring of Zugin Town. Rooftops shatter, watchtowers collapse, monsters are impaled midstep. A row of armored figures vanishes in the blast as wind detonations ripple outward from each impact, throwing debris and limbs skyward. Panic erupts inside the perimeter. Screams. Alarm horns. Shouts in monstrous tongues. Formation lines crumble. Patrols scatter to react, too late. From the ridge, Gresrin sees the opportunity and doesn't hesitate. Shield wall. Move. He roars the command, and 10,000 boots thunder into motion behind him. The first 5 lines bring their tower shields to the front, snapping into a tight formation with a boom of steel against earth. Break their footing. Gresrin yells, his sword rising high. Tier 5. Earthline surge. Go. Brown gold light bursts beneath his boots as he slams his shield into the ground. A rolling wave of stone and dirt erupts ahead of them, tearing a narrow path through broken terrain and into the chaos-stricken perimeter of Zugin. The soldiers behind him channel the same skill in sequence, the earth itself shifting and slamming forward like a tidal wave of solid rock. The shockwave crashes through the smoldering enemy line just as the final wind arrows strike. Gresrin bellows as he charges, shield raised. No mercy. Drive straight through the breach. The Ash-Edge soldiers follow without hesitation, pouring into the fractured southern ring like water down a broken wall. The Ash-Edge line crashes through the smoldering breach with brutal force, shields forward, blades drawn. Screams and steel fill the narrow lanes of Zugin's southern ring as disciplined lines of human soldiers engage the monsters heeding. But then a change. The ground trembles, not from the charge but from above. A gust of wind stirs the smoke and a massive winged figure emerges from the ash-lace sky, its outline blotting out the moonlight like a vulture over carrion. Clad in dark crimson armor lined with jagged bone plating, the monster's commander beats its wings with thunderous force, rising high above the burning rooftops. A mid-level tier 5, its presence alone presses down like a storm. It raises a jagged glaive in one hand and snarls through a helm shaped like a predator's skull. Its voice carries over the battlefield like iron dragged across stone. Human. Its red eyes narrow, locking onto Gresrin below. Prepare to die. Gresrin halts mid-charge, lifting his gaze to meet the descending shape. Well, I've always been prepared to die. The monster dives, glaive poised like a harpoon, screaming toward Gresrin with killing intent. But, WHHHSSST. A single arrow whistles through the air, glowing pale green faster than sight. It slams into the monster's chest with a burst of compressed wind. Not strong enough to kill, but more than enough to stop the dive cold. Boom! The commander is flung backward midair, tumbling once before stabilizing itself with a snarl. Smoke trails from its chestplate where the arrow struck. It scans the battlefield. High on a nearby rooftop, cloak fluttering in the chaos, Valira stands with bow raised and fingers already drawing another arrow. Her voice cuts cleanly across the roar below. You don't touch him. The monster's voice is venomous, livid. Another insect with a toy. Valira's next arrow is already glowing sharper this time. You picked the wrong sky to fly in. Gresrin smirks from the ground, lifting his shield again. Appreciate the save, Commander. Valira doesn't look at him. Her eyes stay locked on the airborne threat. Don't thank me yet. That one's mine. Then she fly. Wind bursts at her heels and launches her into the air, bow trailing light behind her like a comet's tail. The Tier 5 commander roars and flies to meet her mid-sky, wings wide and glaive raised. While chaos tears through Zugan's southern ring, a different storm begins to brew in the shadows of its eastern gate. Beneath the veil of smoke and sound, Solvan slinks along the inner trench, crouched low, barely a whisper in the dark. Around him, dozens of ash-edged scouts mirror his movements. Hoods drawn, faces smudged with ash blades sheathed in cloth. Their formation is a ghost net woven tight through the rocky slopes and burnt brush around the fortified main gate. Through a gap in the crumbled wall, Solvan surveys the area ahead. At the front gate, just over 100 armored enemies hold a tight perimeter, disciplined, patient. Their armor gleams dull gray in the moonlight, their formation rigid and still. No calls, no chatter, no signs of disarray despite the distant explosions. They're not reacting to the storm. They're waiting. Solvan crouches behind a collapsed stone pillar, eyes narrowing as he watches the enemy formation. Sparks of firelight from the burning rooftops flicker behind them, casting jagged shadows over the waiting guards. He doesn't flinch, just observes, steady, calculating. Then he exhales. Quiet. Controlled. He turns to his scouts. 36 elite shadows at his back, each one trained for this kind of moment. "All right," he says, just loud enough for the nearest to hear. "This is it." He shifts his stance, hand resting lightly on the hilt of his dagger. "There's about 500 of them between us and the gate. That means every single move we make counts." The scouts tighten around him, listening closely. "We go in quiet. We go in quick. No unnecessary noise. No wasted motion. If we're not fast, the other side starts bleeding." He jerks his chin toward the distant screams and clashing steel echoing from the southern ring. "Valira and Gressrin are already drawing the worst of it. That gives us this window. But if we don't move now and clean, then we're done. They're done." He gives a final glance to his second-in-command, a scarred man with a dagger in his both hand. "You get that gate open no matter what." The man nods, dead serious. "Even if I have to burn through it." Solvan smirks faintly. "That's the spirit." Then he rises low and steady. "Let's move." Above the battlefield, Valira and the winged commander clash mid-sky like gods of war. The air between them twists and booms with each strike. The monster's crimson glaive cuts arcs of shrieking pressure through the night, meeting arrow after arrow that bursts with elemental force. Each exchange is brief, brutal. A series of flickers and detonations across the smoke-lined sky. Valira ducks under a horizontal swing, her boots barely brushing the air as wind magic coalesces beneath her. She flips backward and fires point-blank. An arrow tipped with compressed gale. Crack! It slams into the commander's helm and ricochets with a burst of sparks. The monster barely flinches. Her eyes narrow. That should have cracked the skull of a low-level Tier 5. She pivots midair and flies back, pulling distance with a hard burst of wind at her heels. As she floats backward, bow already drawing again, she analyzes. The armor, Tier 5. The way the wind dispersed instead of piercing. The glaive, it sings with ether when it swings. Valira can feel it every time they lock. Sharp, greedy, and thrumming like a dragon's fang in motion. Another Tier 5. But then she sees something else. Just beneath the monster's ribs, tucked behind a set of plated ridges. A glint. Not armor. Not steel. A dull violet gemstone bound into a wrist-length shackle. A charm? No, a reactive field. Her eyes widen for just a second. That's a Tier 4 defensive artifact. She banks hard as the glaive cuts toward her neck. It misses by inches, singing past her shoulder. Who the hell gave this thing 3 artifacts? She looses another arrow mid-spin, this one laced with vibration force. It shatters the air around them, aiming for the monster's wing joint. But again, tum! The glow from the violet gem pulses and a transparent hexagonal barrier flickers just long enough to absorb the blast. The monster growls, barely staggered. The monster halts midair for just a breath, teeth bared in a grin behind its jagged helm. "Human," it growls, voice slick with mockery. "Getting tired, are we?" Valira doesn't answer, but the edge of her breathing has changed. Slightly sharper, her shoulders tighter. The monster chuckles darkly. "Ha! I see it in your eyes. You're thinking, how does he have these artifacts? How does a lowly monster's wear 3 artifacts?" Its wings spread wide, stirring the smoke with an upward gust as it floats back, theatrically raising the cracked glaive. "Let me enlighten you." His voice shifts, less mocking now, more fanatical. There's a flicker of almost holy reverence behind the crimson glow in its eyes. "It's all thanks to him, our godly king. The one who saw what your kind has done to us for centuries. The one who raised us from the dirt and filth you forced us into." Chapter 249-251. Taking Back the Zugan Town, Part 3. Chapter 249. Chapter 251. Taking Back the Zugan Town, Part 3. It lifts the glaive higher, the blood on its armor steaming in the air. "A benevolent king," it says, voice rising, "who gives freely to those who believe. Who arms even the lowest among us with strength to stand against your cruelty. Cruelty? Valira's voice sharpens. She draws back her bow. I've seen your kind tear through villages where no soldiers stood. I've seen mothers buried under their homes, their children butchered for sport. You call that justice? The monster's eyes burn with intensity. They are savage beasts. The ones who serve my king are something else entirely. Valira exhales, once calm and centered. Then let's see if your king's favor is enough to keep you alive. Thwip. The next arrow looses, silent, blinding, sharper than thought. The moment it leaves the string, the sky howls and the air bends around its path. While Valira duels through storm and fire and Gressrin leads the charge through the breach, Solvin's blade dances in the dark. He moves like a shadow gliding across the battlefield. Swift, surgical, quiet. One enemy drops with a slit throat, another with a dagger buried under the chin. His scouts follow his lead, spreading through the gate's outer defenses like a tide of death. They're close. Just 20 meters from the internal lever tower that controls Zugin's eastern gate. Then, a ripple of killing intent flares across the trench. Stop. The voice is low. Calm. But wrong. The kind that doesn't need to shout to freeze a man in place. From the side corridor of the outer wall, something steps into view. A beast. Humanoid in shape. Its body is wrapped in sinew-type black muscle skin stained with soot and dried gore. The thing's eyes glow a molten yellow, not with rage but awareness. A long obsidian blade rests loosely in its right hand. The steps are smooth. Silent. Solvin sees it instantly. Shit, he mutters, signaling a halt with a raised fist. The creature sniffs the air like a predator that already knows the outcome. A raspy voice echoes from its chest. Oh, someone's close. I can smell them. The beast tilts its head, sniffing again. Slow, deliberate. You smell like wind. Its molten eyes scan the trench ahead but don't settle on anything. Its senses are sharp but not precise. Not yet. Solvin doesn't breathe. He remains crouched low in the shadows, cloaked by smoke and stone. One dagger in each hand, both humming faintly with wind essence, their curved edges sharpened to a near-molecular edge. The air around him stirs, unnaturally muffling sound blurring his shape just slightly. Whisper Veil, a tier 4 skill unique to his fighting style. He glances at his second-in-command. 2 fingers raised in a flicking motion. Go. The man nods once and vanishes into the shadows, with the rest of the scouts moving wide around the flank. The mission continues. Now it's just Solvin and the monster. One breath. One strike. He shifts his footing slowly, silently. The dagger in his right hand flares with concentrated wind, invisible but felt. A vibration in the air like tension before a storm. Solvin narrows his eyes. One shot. That's all I get. The creature steps forward again, still scanning the trench. Its voice, now low and almost amused, floats outward. I can't see you, human. But I know you're there. Closer than you should be. A faint smile twists across its face. Come. Let's see what tricks you have. Solvin exhales. Then he vanishes. Tier 4 skill. Gale Blink. Wind explodes beneath his feet in absolute silence. A compression burst that rockets him forward in an instant. Not even dust stirs behind him. He appears directly behind the monster mid-lunge, both daggers raised in a cross pattern above its nape. Found you, he whispers. Tier 4. Razor Vortex. He slashes downward in an X, twin blades spinning with wind edge that spirals as it lands, shredding through the air with a shriek like rending metal. SHHRRRKKK. The strike lands hard. The monster stumbles forward with a shocked grunt, back arcing, cloak and sinew tearing as blood sprays into the trench wall. But, clang. The obsidian blade flashes backward faster than expected. The flat of it slams toward Solvin's side like a hammer. He twists, barely catching the blow on his offhand dagger. The impact jars through his arm, sending him flying back through the trench. Solvin rolls with it, absorbing the impact, then skids to a stop, knees low, one hand on the dirt. Blood trickles from his lip. He's already back on his feet. Solvin rises slowly. Every rib screams. The strike cracks something, probably more than one thing, but he doesn't falter. He doesn't have time to. The mission is still moving. He tightens his grip on both daggers, the wind around his arms coiling tighter, now responding to his resolve. The hum turns into a low whine as air pressure builds. His eyes sharpen, locked on the beast stepping out of the crater. It rotates its neck with a pop of bones. Blood seeps from its back, but it doesn't seem to care. It lifts the obsidian blade in one hand, dragging it across the ground lazily as it walks forward. You move well, it says. But you bleed too easily. Solvin breathes out through his nose. That's funny. I was thinking the same thing about you. The creature lunges. No roar, no warning. Just a blur of black steel slicing horizontally with impossible speed. Solvin dives under, barely ducking the slash, and slashes upward with both blades. Left for the ribs, right for the wrist. Wind flashes like a whip crack. The creature pulls its arm back just in time, but the left dagger slices deep into its flank. Blood spills, but the monster headbutts forward without hesitation. Crack! The impact jars Salvan's vision. He stumbles back, vision flashing white, but not before slashing out in a sweeping arc, kicking up a blade of compressed wind between them. Tier 4, Cross Shear. The wind slice connects, hurling the monster back a few meters. It lands on its feet, barely a red gash across its chest now widening. It growls, crouching low as its healing slows. Salvan pants, lips bloody, body aching. I need to finish this. Now. He closes his eyes for a split second. Feels the air shift around him. Feels the pull of the storm waiting to be unleashed. He grips his daggers tightly. Let's see if your lungs strong enough for this. The wind howls. Tier 5, Wind Burial. Salvan vanishes again, no flash, no warning. Just gone. Then a roar of slicing air from above. He comes down like a spear, both blades aimed directly for the monster's shoulders. The creature raises its blade to block. Too slow. Crunch. The daggers sink in piercing muscle and snapping collarbone. Salvan twists and the wind explodes outward like a detonation. The trench shudders. Dust and gore scatter in every direction. The beast screams, its blade flung from its hand, landing yards away. It falls to one knee, snarling, one arm limp. Salvan lands hard, coughing, nearly collapsing from the force of his own strike. The monster stares up at him, wheezing, molten blood dripping from its mouth. You bastard! It growls. Salvan wipes blood from his mouth and straightens, breathing raggedly. Still standing? The beast tries to rise, but its leg buckles. It snarls again, feral pained, but then suddenly freezes. Shunk. A wind-forged dagger is embedded in its throat. Salvan stares, unmoving. He doesn't even remember throwing it. Just acted on instinct. The monster gurgles, eyes wide in disbelief. Then it slumps forward dead. Salvan lowers his daggers at last. Shortly after, the iron groan of ancient mechanisms echoes through the trenches. Kernern thunk. The massive eastern gate of Zugan creaks open at last, chains rattling, gears grinding against years of disuse. Dust spills down from the gatehouse and the towering slabs of reinforced steel part, just enough, and 10,000 soldiers waiting surge through like a crashing wave. For the Ash Edge clan. Roars the vanguard commander, his voice swallowed by the thunder of boots and war cries. 10,000 Ash Edge warriors surge through the breach like a flood loosed from a dam. The sound is deafening. Boots pounding metal, clashing, banners whipping in the wind. Tiered formations pour in with precision honed over years of reclaimed battles. Shield bearers in the front, spearmen behind them, and squads of mages, preparing to unleash their opening salvos. The defending monsters don't realize the breach until it's too late. Near the plaza, where Gressrin's forces have held the enemy's focus in a brutal tug-of-war, an explosion of horn blasts rings out. Chapter 252-52. Nasara Thurn and Vertha. Chapter 250. Chapter 252. Nasara Thurn and Vertha. The clash on the air sharpens with every heartbeat. Valira ducks under a wide glaive sweep, rolls across scorched tiles, and looses an arrow mid-roll. The shaft whistles past the monster's cheek, slicing the edge of its jaw. It snarls and leaps back, the momentum shaking the old rooftop beneath them. Smoke and screams drift upward from the plaza. The sound of 10,000 Ash Edge warriors pouring in from the breach below is unmistakable. The monster turns its head slightly, one eye catching the chaos behind Valira. Columns of smoke monsters in retreat, the line collapsing. His face tightens. No, it growls. Did that guy died? Valira stands fully now, no longer crouched. Her bow glows faintly with residual wind essence. Her eyes sharp as a hawk's never leave the enemy in front of her. You're losing, she says flatly. And you know it. The monster bares its fangs. I am not finished. My king's favor still burns in my blood. I can still kill you. Valira tilts her head. Then why are your feet moving backward? For a second it hesitates. Then it glances again at the battlefield below, its forces splintering, their central command broken, flank surrounded. Even the hulking warbeast that once patrolled the southern line lies crumpled near the old bell tower. The monster's grip on its glaive tightens. Then, just slightly, it relaxes. It steps back once. Then again. The storm of battle rages behind Valira, but here on this rooftop, scorched by fire and stained with blood, everything slows. The monster breathes heavily, nostrils flaring. Its armor is cracked. Its left arm trembles from strain. And yet its eyes still burn. Not with desperation, but with something colder. Something deeper. Hatred. I will come back, human, it says, voice like a low drumbeat in her chest. And that time, I will surely kill you. Valira doesn't blink. Her arrow is already nocked. You won't make it that far. The monster doesn't challenge the words. It simply gives her one last look. A final slow glance that speaks of memory, not rage. Promise made in silence. Then it turns. Valira steps forward, immediately bowstring pulled taut. But, she stops. Valira lowers her bow an inch. TCH, she mutters. Coward. Behind her the plaza erupts in triumph. The Ash-Edge war banners rise like flame against the ruin of the old fortress. Their warriors cheer as the final pockets of resistance collapse. Enemy lines disintegrate under the coordinated hammer of spear and spell. From the distant ridge horns blow 3 times in succession. Victory. Zark City, Wall District, Eastern Perch. The sun hangs high above Zark, casting clean white light across the stone streets. What was once a bustling human capital now thrives under monstrous rule. Quiet, orderly, cleaner even than before. Gone are the market shouts and horse hooves. Instead, rows of disciplined beastkin patrol in shifts. No looting. No fires. The city breathes in cold, measured silence. Atop the eastern wall 5 figures cast long shadows. Gorith, 10 meters tall, leans against a watchtower like a man propped against a tavern post. His mountain-thick arms are crossed over his chest, and the stone beneath his feet has cracked from the sheer weight of him. I'm getting bored now, he rumbles, voice deep enough to shake dust loose from the nearby tiles. His eyes scan the quiet horizon with lazy disinterest. How is Gander still not giving us any damn assignments? I heard the humans already started taking back their towns. The sound is like boulders grinding. I want to crush a few just to stretch my legs. Varkas sits nearby on a stone ledge, clawed feet dangling. The lycanthrope's fur is mottled gray with streaks of white and his eyes gleam. Though one pawed hand constantly drums the hilt out of habit. We don't have a choice. Gander decided to accumulate gold coins first for His Majesty, Varkas says, licking his sharp teeth with a bored grin. I heard our enemy this time has 20 tier SIXS plus the tier SIXS from their affiliated forces. Around 35 in total. Thurn leans against the inner parapet, 8 legs neatly tucked beneath his torso. His chitin gleams under the sunlight, black and polished like lacquered armor. He taps a finger idly against one of the venom-coated fangs at his jaw. Oh wow, he mutters, half sarcastic. Even with the Kalan continent bolstering our side, even though we've got 15 tier SIXS now, we're still outnumbered. He clicks his tongue. Nasara sits perched upside down beneath a wooden beam, legs folded like a resting predator. Her silver-hued chitin gleams faintly with Arevan streaks, each one glittering like metal under sunlight. She yawns, stretching lazily. Nasara said, smirking. Some of us are enjoying the break. This city is clean, quiet, and no human smell anymore. Honestly, this might be the nicest place we've stayed in since the first invasion. Her long serpentine tail is wrapped neatly around the stone railing. Her upper body, elegant poised, rests comfortably upright as her forked tongue flicks briefly into the air. Gorith grins. A deep, earth-shaking rumble of a grin. He pushes off the wall, heavy steps thudding like drums as he turns to look at the others. You two want to stay here like you're on vacation? He says with a teasing edge. I might need to tell Gander about this. Let him know his soldiers are getting a bit too comfortable. Nasara jolts, nearly slipping from her perch. What? No, of course not, sir. She says, quickly flipping upright with unnatural grace. For His Majesty, we won't rest until this entire continent is ours. Even Vertha straightens slightly, arms crossed over her scaled chest, her golden eyes narrowing at Nasara and Thurn. Thurn clicks his fangs, stiffening under the sudden pressure. He glances toward Gorith with an unreadable look, half nervous, half amused, and then shoots a glare at the 2 women. You heard him, Thurn mutters. We're not here to enjoy the view. But before anyone can speak further, Varkas snorts and raises a clawed hand, waving dismissively. Stop scaring them, Gorith, he says. They earned the rest. All 3 of them helped in crushing those human towns easily. And Thurn. Well, you poisoned half a fortress in one night, didn't you? Thurn smiles slightly at that. Thin, crooked. Varkas goes on, voice steady. Your guys' strength are rising fast. Wouldn't surprise me if all of you surpasses us in the next few years. Nasara hums, pleased. I wouldn't mind that. Vertha leans her arms on the railing, her long tail curling behind her. We only get stronger because of His Majesty's gifts, she says softly. We're not rushing ahead. Just following the path he cleared. Gorith lets out a low chuckle, folding his arms again. Nasara tilts her head thoughtfully, then smirks. Speaking of getting stronger, isn't Princess Ruva already at peak tier 4 now? I heard she can fight at tier 5 and probably win. That little psycho's catching up. Vertha nods, her gaze fixed on the clouds drifting lazily beyond the city walls. Also that new girl. The Oni His Majesty brought in. The one who manipulates blood. Carnessa, Thurn says quietly. That's her name. Right, Vertha continues. Her strength is rising just as fast. Last I heard, she absorbed the blood of 5 tier 4 commanders during that mountain siege. The way she fights. It's not normal. Nasara's smirk fades slightly. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? If His Majesty even remembers us anymore. The silence that follows is short but heavy. Varkas turns his head, eyes narrowing. He does, he says firmly. His Majesty doesn't forget his subordinates. Not the weak ones. Not the strong ones. Everyone has a place. Everyone has a chance. You want to stay in his shadow? Then try your best to grow stronger. That's all he asks. Nothing more. The trio go quiet. Because they know, deep down, they're different. They can grow. They're evolving faster than ever. But Varkas and Gorith, they've been the same for years now. No changes. No rises. No gifts. As if they've already reached the ceiling of what they can become. They never talk about it. And no one asks. Maybe it's because the others are afraid of the answer. So instead they just stand there watching the horizon. The wind shifts, carrying the faintest scent of battle smoke from the west. Somewhere another battle brews. Chapter 251-253. Fiving City. The streets below the towering wall still hum with life, though different than before. The colors are muted, voices hushed. Most of the nobles have long fled, but the humans that remain? Traders, cooks, blacksmiths, the people who kept the city running. Now they serve under new masters. Monsters wearing Alex's banner. Alex's forces, organized, quiet, efficient. Don't rampage or steal. But that doesn't mean humans feel safe. Inside a narrow eatery nestled beside an old alley, the scent of fried tuber and smoked fish wafts in the air. It's lunch hour, and despite the tension, 3 beastkin soldiers lounge inside, weapons stacked near the door. The owner, a stout woman in her 50s named Mirsa, watches them carefully as she wipes down the counter. Her hands tremble slightly, but she forces her voice to stay level. "You sirs want anything else?" she asks. "Still got soup from this morning." One of the beastkin, a lean, jackal-headed scout, raises a clawed hand without looking. "More stew. That soft meat one." She nods, then turns, but winces as another soldier reaches for a coin pouch. Mirsa blinks, surprised. You're actually paying?" The jackal looks up at her, his muzzle twitching. "His Majesty ordered it. No stealing. No threats. Anyone caught breaking the rule loses a hand or gets reassigned to the border mines." He says it plainly, like it's just a fact. The other 2 soldiers nod, unfazed. Mirsa hesitates for a heartbeat. "See." The jackal snorts, tearing a piece of bread with sharp teeth. "Don't get the wrong idea. Some of us still hate humans. Plenty, actually. If His Majesty didn't order it, you'd see a lot more blood on these streets." His companion, a stocky lizardkin with pale green scales, grunts in agreement. "Especially the old. They don't forget the way humans used to burn our dens and villages. You walk past them wrong, they'll still look at you like prey. But they don't touch us," Mirsa says quietly, voice steadier now. "Why?" The jackal's yellow eyes flicker, unreadable. "Because His Majesty made it law. And in his kingdom the law means something." He leans back, arms crossed. "Killing innocents? Stealing from citizens? Executing unarmed prisoners? That's not war anymore, that's weakness. Cowardice. You do that, you're not just punished." The lizardkin finishes for him, voice flat. "You die." Mirsa grips the cloth in her hands tighter. "Why? Why would he care about us humans?" The jackal shrugs. "You think we know? Maybe he wants to rule properly. Maybe he just doesn't like chaos. Maybe he sees humans as tools. Doesn't matter. His Majesty's orders are clear. And nobody wants to test what happens if they break them." In the VIP room of Velvet Hall restaurant located in the central ring. A golden glow filters through sheer drapes as sunlight reflects off crystal chandeliers. The private VIP room of Velvet Hall restaurant is lined with silk curtains, polished stone walls, and a long table set with silver dishes. A gentle string quartet plays softly from a nearby balcony. Princess Ruva pokes at a slice of glazed venison with her fork, then sighs, voice laced with mild complaint. "This isn't bad. But it's still not as good as the palace food." Across the table, Soren chuckles softly. "You're right, Princess Ruva. The food back at the palace is heavenly compared to this. Those chefs practically use magic." Ruva nods, straightening her back like she's making an official declaration. "They do use magic. One of them has a heat rune carved into his cutting board. I saw it once." Soren raises a brow. "That explains a lot." Ruva takes another bite, then suddenly looks up with a hopeful sparkle in her golden eyes. "Big sister, you should visit me at the palace sometimes." Soren blinks, surprised, but then her expression softens. She sets down her fork and leans forward, slightly resting her chin in one hand. "You really want me to?" Ruva nods eagerly, her voice shy but sincere. I like you." Soren smiles, something gentle flickering across her usually calm face. Unable to help herself, she reaches over and lightly pinches Ruva's cheek. Ruva squeaks and swats at her hand. Hey." Soren laughs quietly, then sits back with a warm, amused look in her eyes. "All right, I'll visit," she says. "And I'll bring my little sister Naira. She's about your age." Ruva's eyes widen with delight. "Oh, I know Naira. Big brother talks about her. He said you did everything just to rescue her from the humans." Soren blinks, caught off guard. "His Majesty talks about me?" Ruva nods, quickly, spoon halfway to her mouth. "Of course. He said you're strong and brave and that you're beautiful." Soren freezes. Her ears twitch slightly and a light pink dusts her cheeks. "He said that?" she asks, voice a little too quiet. Ruva gives a sweet, innocent smile. Soren looks away for a second, clearly flustered, trying and failing to hide the small smile tugging at her lips. Ruva giggles into her teacup. In truth, Alex never said beautiful, just that Soren was reliable and saved her sister. But Ruva doesn't plan to mention that. She just likes seeing Soren's usual calm crack a little. Soren finally recovers, clearing her throat and muttering, "Well, His Majesty tends to exaggerate." Ruva leans forward with a sly grin. "I don't think so. I think he meant it." Soren tries to glare playfully, but the pink on her cheeks gives her away. "Keep teasing and I won't bring Naira." Ruva gasps. "No. Okay, I will stop." Soren smirks but says nothing more, returning to her meal with a calm grace that doesn't quite hide the flicker of emotion in her eyes. She listens to Ruva hum softly as she picks at her dessert, the chatter of silverware and distant music filling the silences. Yet her mind drifts. To him. Alex. She's liked him for a long time, since that day he rescued her sister. It was the first time she saw power wielded with purpose. And mercy. And after that, well, everyone knows. Even if she doesn't say it. It's in the way she looks at him. The way she volunteers for every mission to get stronger faster. The way her hand always clenches when he walks past without a glance. But he's her king. She's just a subordinate. A loyal sword in his empire. Still, she hasn't given up. Every day she trains. Pushes herself to the edge. Tries to grow stronger, faster, better. Because maybe, just maybe, one day she'll stand beside him, not behind him. But no matter how fast she climbs, he climbs faster. Every time she reaches a new tier, he's already moved on. Always ahead. Always farther. And lately, there are more of them. New faces. Powerful ones. Subordinates who come out of nowhere. Beings who make the earth tremble when they walk. Soren wonders if he still remembers her at all. She doesn't say anything to Ruva. Doesn't show it. But behind her calm smile is a quiet ache. Still, she thinks back to the way he looked at her during her last report. Months have passed since she last saw him alone. Just the two of them. For a moment he listened, nodded, and said, "Good work, Soren." As always, maybe it's not much, but she clings to it. Soren glances out the window, the golden light catching her eyes. I guess he still does remember me, she thinks. And just like that she smiles again, soft, distant, but real. The next morning, the war orders arrive like clockwork, transmitted through the silver bracers worn by each general and unit commander. The devices emit a soft chime, and then a cold blue projection of the battlefield map blooms above each wrist, detailing targets, objectives, and troop assignments. Soren stands beneath the shade of a jagged ruin near the southern marsh staging camp, her squad arrayed behind her. Wind stirs her coat. The mist smells of damp earth and steel. Her eyes scan the projected orders with practiced calm. We're assigned to sweep through the Fiving City. Expect high-level Tier 5 resistance. We move by noon. Understood, General replies, her second, a silent birdkin scout named Rav. The troops begin prepping in silence, checking gear, sharpening blades, and adjusting armor straps. It's a seasoned unit. No cheering. No bravado. Just readiness. Then, tap, tap, tap. Boots crunch on gravel behind her. "Big sis." A familiar voice calls. Soren turns and raises an eyebrow. "Princess?" Ruva jogs up, wearing travel leathers dyed in Alex's black and silver. Her cape flutters and a slender saber hangs from her hip. She's even tied her snowy hair in a high braid. "Can I join your unit for this one?" Ruva asks, a hopeful smile playing on her lips. Soren blinks once, then huffs a soft laugh. "You're asking me? I already checked the orders," Ruva says quickly. "My name's on your roster. Sir Gander approved it." "He did?" Soren asks, narrowing her eyes slightly. "And he's really okay with you going back to the front again?" "Yes," Ruva replies, firmly folding her arms. "If he doesn't ill, just call Big Brother again." Soren eyebrows twitched. "I see." Ruva pouts, cheeks puffed slightly. "And besides, I already helped conquer one town, you know." Soren smirks. "Oh, I know. Word travels fast when it's about our legendary princess debut." Soren steps closer and rests one hand lightly on Ruva's shoulder, her voice softening, but not losing that edge of command. "I know you're strong enough to fight a Tier 5, but I want you always near me. Understand?" Ruva snaps to attention, giving a cheeky salute. "Aye, General." Soren's lips twitch into a smile despite herself. She watches Ruva bounce lightly on her feet, that usual spark of energy glowing in her eyes. Fearless, reckless, and somehow still pure. There's a warmth to her that the battlefield hasn't dulled. Chapter 252-254. Siege Weapons. The day deepens. The sky hangs low with pale clouds as Soren's unit begins to march quiet and steady through the old war-torn road that curves toward the city's outer rim. Inside one of the armored carriages at the center column, Soren sits with Ruva across from her. The interior is dim but well kept, the wooden walls padded with dark velvet, the iron-plated windows latched half open for breathability. Ruva sways slightly with the motion of the wheel's legs kicking idly as she looks out then back at Soren. So, she says casually, then glances up with a grin. What exactly am I gonna do? Soren doesn't look up from the small map she's reviewing. Kill everything you see. Ruva tilts her head. Oh, that's it? Pretty much. Soren flips the page. Then after a short pause she glances up. Her voice softens slightly. Wait, you're okay with killing now? Ruva quiets. She looks down at her gloves, flexing her fingers once. The first time I killed, it really made me uncomfortable. I kept thinking about their face. The way they fell. The sound they made. Her voice drops to a murmur. I didn't sleep much that night. Soren doesn't interrupt. She listens. Ruva continues slower this time. But I needed to do it. If I wanted to help Big Brother. I didn't want to just sit and wait anymore. She raises her eyes, calm, determined. The more I fight, the more I get used to it. Doesn't mean I like it, but I can do it. Soren stares at her in silence for a moment. Then quietly says, Princess, Ruva, you're very mature for your age. Ruva shifts in her seat, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. She bites her lip, then mumbles, Big sister. Soren lifts an eyebrow. Can you stop calling me princess? Ruva says shyly. Can you just call me like little sister instead? For a second Soren doesn't say anything. Her eyes soften. Then she leans back and smiles. Genuine quiet. From now on she says, you'll be my little sister. Ruva beams, cheeks red but glowing. Really? Soren nods. But don't think he'll go easy on you just because of that. I don't want you to. Ruva says quickly, grinning. Big Brother doesn't either. He always says if I want to stand beside him I have to earn it. Soren chuckles. That sounds like him. The carriage rumbles onward. For a while there's silence between them, calm, companionable. Outside the steady rhythm of boots and wheels thumps like a heartbeat through the ground. Birds circle above the shattered watchtowers ahead. After several hours of steady marching the wind grows heavier with ash and steel. Distant horns echo from the old eastern towers. Long, low and grim. They've arrived. Fiving City stands tall ahead of them, its walls scarred but still imposing. The battlements are manned and red banners wave overhead. Smoke curls from parts of the inner districts. The city is already on high alert. Soren stands at the front of the column now, her armored coat catching the wind, her gaze fixed on the looming city. She doesn't look concerned. Of course they saw us coming, she thinks. We didn't try to hide. 100,000 soldiers at her back. Monsters, beasts, war machines and more. March in disciplined ranks under the obsidian banner of Alex. It would have been impossible not to notice. Atop the walls the defenders are moving quickly, signaling positions, archers lining up, mages starting to chant. Fiving's garrison, 70,000 strong, is already in place. Ruva steps up beside her, shield slung over her back and hand resting lightly on her saber. They look nervous, she mutters, squinting at the wall. Think they're gonna surrender? Soren snorts once. No, they're soldiers. They'll fight. Soren's eyes remain on the city walls. Ruva. Stay close. And listen to my orders the moment I give them. No hesitation. Ruva blinks then nods. Got it. A moment passes. Then a voice speaks beside Soren. Her second-in-command lay his gravel-toned voice low. Scouts report that the city's outer traps are armed. Mana fields have been activated across the north towers. At least 3 tier 5s confirmed. Possibly 5. She turns around, her eyes sweeping across her army. No horns. No speeches. Just a short gesture. Lay sees it and immediately relays the signal. Drums pound. Heavy steady. Columns shift. Siege weapons begin rolling forward and long-range casters fan out. Winged scouts rise from behind the second lines. Massive wheels churn over dirt and stone as 2 siege weapons roll into position. Towering constructs of reinforced alloy and blackened with their frames grown with arcane weight. Each one is the size of a small house covered in glowing etchwork and heavy chains. The air around them hums with barely contained mana. Siege Battery 1 and 2 in position, Lay reports, eyes flicking across the floating mana visor affixed to his bracer. Mana stones are stabilized. Firing sequence ready. Soren nods once. Destroy Thier defensive shield. First unit fire. Second earth. Coordinate the blast window. From behind her the high-pitched whine of mana alignment begins. One of the siege engines unfolds its stabilizer legs and locks into the soil with a deep thunk. The crystal core at its heart, a bright orange mana stone, pulses brighter and brighter. Then, boom. A beam of fire erupts from the weapon's cannon mouth, a pillar of blinding orange light roaring across the open field. The very air bends around it from the heat. It slams directly into the city's mana shield. An invisible dome flaring instantly into view as the beam hits. The barrier groans. Sparks cascade down like molten rain. Direct hit. Lei calls out. Shield integrity down to 60%. Second siege, fire Soren commands. The second siege weapon shifts. Earth mana builds swirling around the glowing green core embedded deep within its chassis. A heavy tremor rolls beneath the ground as the cannon locks on target. With a thunderous crack it fires, not as a beam but a massive projectile of compressed earth shaped like a jagged boulder the size of a house. It spins through the air trailing dust and chunks of rock before smashing into the same weakened spot in the shield. The barrier shrieks this time, flashing a blinding green before fracturing like glass under pressure. Shield integrity down to 30%. Lei reports, eyes flicking again to the readouts. Another hit will collapse it. The defenders do not wait. The moment the second blast strikes, the walls of Fiving erupt in a counteroffensive. Arrows darken the sky. Thousands of them fired in disciplined volleys from archer units lined along the battlements. Behind them spellcasters raise their hands, mana swirling in practiced rhythm as runes form across their palms. Return fire. Comes the cry from the city's general atop the central tower. Dozens of offensive spells blaze out from the high wall. Fireballs, arcs of lightning, compressed blades of wind, each aimed not at the approaching soldiers but at the siege weapons. They're targeting the engines. Lei growls. Even as he speaks, a firebolt screams through the air, striking just meters from one of the siege machines. The blast rocks the frame, but it holds steady, though the armor plating now glows red-hot from the impact. A second spell, an ice lance this time, flies straight toward the earth siege cannon. But it never lands. A shimmering blue barrier flares up in front of the weapon just in time, absorbing the ice projectile with a hiss of frost. Behind the siege line, a group of monster mages, hulking forms with 4 arms and reptilian skin, stand in rigid formation. Their hands are outstretched, eyes closed, chanting in perfect synchronicity as mana streams from their cores into a wide protective shield. One of the lead mages, a longhorn spellcaster in layered violet robes, opens his eyes just enough to speak. Shields holding. Good, Soren says calmly without turning. Maintain formation. Prepare to fire again. Arrows thud into the shield barrier, bouncing off harmlessly or disintegrating on impact. But the pressure mounts. More spells come faster this time. A coordinated lightning chain arcs across the mana barrier and flickers dangerously close to one of the casters. Reinforce the left sector. The horned mage snaps. The left flank mages adjust, growling low, their aura expanding as they pour more mana into the shimmering wall. Wow. They're so cool, Ruva says in awe, eyes wide as she watches the monster casters at work. Soren's voice is calm and steady. They're graduates of the Celestia Magisterium Academy. Don't look away, watch how they balance their mana flow under pressure. A deafening boom echoes as another human spell detonates near the siege cannon, this one a multi-rune blast of wind and fire. The explosion sends a shockwave across the field, flattening nearby trees and tossing light infantry off their feet. But again the shield holds, cracked, sparking, but unbroken. With another fire from the siege weapon, the barrier finally shatters. The dome of mana that protected Fiving explodes in a bloom of light and whistling static. Fragments of the magical shield burst outward like shattered glass, disintegrating midair with a sharp, unnatural screech. A tremor rips across the battlefield as raw mana diffuses violently into the atmosphere. Soren doesn't hesitate. Shield is down, Lei confirms. Soren raises her hand. Frontline units, advance. Push forward. Shield formation. The order thunders down the ranks like a rolling quake. Giant war drums beat in sync, and at once the monster army surges. In the vanguard, shieldbearers. Massive hulking monsters in full plate, their bodies wrapped in enchanted iron and reinforced shields, slam their tower shields into position. Each shield glows faintly with defensive runes, forming an impenetrable wall of steel and magic. Chapter 253-255. Soren vs. Thalen. Chapter 253. Chapter 255. Soren vs. Thalen. Formation complete, one of the lead captains shouts. Activating fortress stance. Dozens of glowing sigils ignite across the front line. Mana flows like veins of light through the connected shields, fusing them into a barrier the height of a 2-story house. Spells and arrows from the city walls rain down, but each projectile crashes harmlessly against the wall, sparking, scattering, or simply bouncing off the layered enchantments. From behind that advancing wall, monster soldiers pour forth. Archers fire from protected slots, launching wave after wave of black-feathered bolts. War beasts snarl and rush forward, covered by their handlers, and infantry march with perfect discipline. The monsters push forward without a single casualty. They're holding well, Lei mutters beside Soren, watching the battle unfold through his manavisor. Soren's eyes stay locked on the advancing tide. Good. Keep them steady. On the city walls, human commanders bark out frantic orders. Mages reposition. New spell circles begin forming. A second wave of spells launches, larger, more desperate this time. A wave of flame roars from the north tower targeting the advancing left flank. A chain of water blades follows arcing down in precise timing. From the center tower, a thunderstrike spell descends like a falling star. But the shield wall adjusts. Left column reinforce. Elevate formation. The shield captain roars. The front left shields angle upward just as the fire hits. The flames wash over the enchanted barrier in a river of orange, but the runes flash and hold. The water blades split against the slanted plates, carving deep grooves but doing no real damage. The thunderstrike slams down with a boom, but the shield line digs in, crouching low, legs braced. The ground cracks, but not a single soldier falls. Ruva watches with wide eyes. They didn't even flinch. So this is what war really looks like. A loud snap echoes through the air. The two siege weapons charge again. Magic cores pulsing bright as sunlight. Brace! Lei yells. A beam of fire and a massive boulder launch in rapid succession. One after the other, scorching the battlefield with pure destruction. This time the target is the main gate itself. The twin impacts strike like divine judgment. The gate, already trembling from sabotage and internal pressure, doesn't stand a chance. Would steel and mana-reinforced stone detonate outward, vaporized in a burst of flame and crushed by the immense impact. The resulting explosion creates a gaping wound in the wall wide enough to ride a dragon through. From within, a shockwave of panic rolls through the human defenders. They've broken through. A panicked voice cries atop the rampart. The gate is gone. All units defensive stance. The city general shouts, unsheathing his blade. Archers, focus fire on the breach. Hold the line. But it's too late. A monstrous war horn bellows. The monsters storm the city. The shield-bearers peel off to either side, opening the gap. The frontline charge begins, not with chaos but thunderous discipline. First wave, hulking beastmen, thick-skinned and armored, wielding heavy maces and runehammers. They charge through the broken gate, smashing the first line of defenders before they even stabilize formation. Shields splinter. Bones break. Screams erupt. Second wave, agile skirmishers. Lupin hunters, shadowy fanged warriors, twin dagger assassins. They dart through alleys and over fallen debris, weaving between burning carts and dead soldiers like shadows. Third wave, the heavy infantry. Towering ogres, orcs, and mutated giants crash through the breach with crushing force, their weapons cleaving multiple soldiers at once. From the rooftops, human mages begin counterattacking. A bolt of lightning streaks downward, striking a hulking monster deaden. But then he stands back up. Half his face is scorched. His eyes still burn with mana. He roars and charges again. Above, more monsters climb the walls. Arachnes scuttle up the masonry with impossible speed, claws scraping stone. Reptilian raiders leap from siege ladders, their scimitars igniting midair. Flying creatures, bat-winged and howling, carry lighter warriors over the ramparts. The city walls, once a proud bastion, become a slaughterhouse. Then, from the scorched sky above, 5 human figures descend like burning comets, trailing blue and silver streaks of mana. Their presence hits like a shockwave. Each one radiates raw, crushing pressure. Tier 5 auras flaring to life as they spread out across the air above the broken gate. Soren lifts her head, eyes narrowing. 5 tier 5s. A moment later, Lei steps beside her, sword drawn and expression calm despite the enemy's arrival. They've arrived, he says, eyes narrowing. Mid to high tier 5s, judging by the mana output. Soren's voice cuts through the tension. Calm, precise. Alert everyone. Be ready. Lei nods, then turns to the 3 monster commanders gathered behind them, each one pulsing with battle-ready intent. Their armor is reinforced with runic plates, their eyes locked on the enemy above. Soren steps forward, eyes locked on the sky as the 5 human tier 5s hover above the gate like avenging spirits. Wind howls around them, stirred by the sheer force of their mana alone. She lifts a hand. Lei Dravik Island Core, she says without turning. Engage and eliminate. The 4 commanders nod without hesitation. We'll handle them, says Dravik, a broad-shouldered brute with black-scaled skin and molten veins glowing through his armor. Leave none standing. Lei draws his blade, mana humming along its length like a storm held barely in check. Pick your target and don't get distracted. These aren't rookies. Soren's eyes flick to Ruva, who stands at her side, clutching her staff tightly. Ruva. Her voice is firm. Stay close. As long as I can see you, you're free to do as you wish. Understood? Ruva gulps but nods. Got it. I won't go far, I promise. Soren smiles faintly. Good. Then she launches into the sky. Mana surges under her feet in a brilliant blue spiral as she rises, fast wind whipping around her coat and hair. The moment she clears the smoke and debris, one of the tier 5 humans spots her and breaks formation. Soaring directly toward her with a flash of silver armor and a great sword crackling with lightning. Their auras clash midair. The sky trembles. Below, the other 4 tier 5s dive toward Soren's commanders. The battlefield splits as 5 duels explode across the sky, each one a spectacle of speed, force, and raw magic. Above the ruined gate, Soren meets her opponent Hedon. He's older, mid-40s maybe, a veteran with white in his temples and calm fury in his eyes. His name is Commander Thalen from the Empire. He doesn't waste time. A crack of thunder explodes as Commander Thalen thrusts his hand forward. A massive lance of lightning forms midair, Tier 5 skill, Stormpike manifest, and hurls toward Soren like a divine judgment. Soren vanishes. A burst of compressed wind marks where she stood, and in the blink of an eye she reappears behind him. Dagger drawn, a ribbon of silver mana trailing in her wake. Tier 4 skill, Gale Step. Thalen reacts fast, twisting midair and swinging his greatsword in a wide arc. Lightning bursts from the blade's edge. Tier 4 skill, Arc Cleave, forcing Soren to pull back just before impact. The shockwave rips through the sky, sending thunder echoing across the battlefield. You dodge well, Thalen says, voice sharp cold. Soren didn't respond. She flips her dagger once, then flicks her free hand. The wind howls in a tightening spiral. Tier 5 skill, Wind Cage. Air compresses and curves around Thalen like a collapsing vortex, dragging his limbs and blade off balance. He struggles to stabilize his flight, and Soren is already on him. Her dagger flashes like a comet. Tier 5 skill, Spiral Pierce, a wind-augmented thrust that seeks the joint in his armor. Thalen channels lightning through his entire body. Tier 5 skill, Living Conduit, discharging a pulse of electricity in all directions. The force sends Soren flying backward, smoke trailing from her shoulder. She twists midair, absorbing the momentum and flipping once before leveling out. She grits her teeth. You're not some Halphus Tier 5, she mutters. That's good. She exhales slowly. The wind gathers around her once more, not as a storm, but as a blade. Soren doesn't hesitate. She raises both hands, and her mana erupts. 3 distinct pulses detonate outward in rapid succession, sending shockwaves through the air as her aura expands tenfold. Tier 5 skill, Storm Veil. A barrier of swirling wind wraps around her like an untouchable mantle, distorting her outline with constant movement. Tier 5 skill, Tempest Edge. Her dagger extends with invisible wind blades, turning every movement into a multilayered slash. Tier 5 skill, Gale Drive. Her speed doubles, and for an instant the air seems to tear as she vanishes again, flickering between currents like a living phantom. Thalen's eyes go wide. What? His mana flares in response, desperate and sharp. He activates his own buff. Tier 5 skill, Thundercrest. Electric arcs crackle and solidify around his frame, forming jagged armor of living lightning, boosting his strength and reflexes. But compared to Soren's triple-activated aura, it's thin, unbalanced. He stares at her as she hangs effortlessly in the air, body wrapped in storm, silver eyes glowing with predatory calm. You've activated 3 Tier 5 buffs at once. He barks. Soren says nothing. Her dagger spins once in her fingers before vanishing into a sheath of wind. Thalen shouts, incredulous, rage mixing with fear. How does a monster have more Tier 5 skills than me? I'm with the Empire, the strongest force on this continent. This has to be bluff. No, this is fake. Soren's voice cuts through the wind like a blade. Then try to stop me. She shoots forward. A sonic boom rips through the air. She's moving faster than before. Thalen barely brings his sword up in time. Clang. Her dagger collides with his blade, but the aftershock throws him back through the air like a ragdoll. He crashes into an invisible wall of pressure, wind cage still active, bouncing off it like an insect against glass. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions, just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.